Thank you. I'll now recognize myself for 5 minutes. Ms. Muniz, how is it that OBO started construction on this facility prior to having the security parameters in place? And how is it that the Undersecretary of Management certifies to Congress that it's safe and secure, but when they haven't completed all the security tests?
Let me take that question first, and then I'll hand it over to Greg, who is the one who certifies and confirms that these projects meet all of the Department's security standards. I'd like to remind the committee that when a project is certified, what DS is doing and what ultimately the Undersecretary for Management is doing is they are certifying a design. The design of the London Embassy met all of the very stringent requirements that were provided by diplomatic security. It meets those using very complex calculations and running those calculations for hundreds, sometimes thousands of hours. So it is possible to confirm by calculation that designs meet the standards, and that's precisely what was done.
Why did you start construction prior to the DS certification?
I would argue that we did not start construction. I would argue that we awarded a construction contract, as the Department has done since
when do you think
for the last 10 years.
When did you think we started construction?
So for years, piling and doing the pile caps is considered part of the site work and the site stabilization.
Okay, so let me run you through a couple pictures. These are pictures provided by State Department on your Flickr account. Are you telling us that that's not construction? I have 3 pictures here I'd like to show you. And what we've been told is these pictures are dated by State Department on the State Department website prior to the certification, and that's what the Inspector General's, I mean, it didn't come to our attention, but for the Inspector General, and you don't seem to agree with it, and we're confused by that. We're supposed to believe that that's not construction. Go to slide number 2. That, to me, seems like an awful lot of work going on and a lot of construction, and you don't believe that that's, are you telling us that's not construction?
I agree it is an awful lot of work, but under the definitions that we use and have used for years with diplomatic security, we do site pilings, and we cap those pilings to stabilize the earth, the soil, and the site before we come out of the ground.
Let's go to the next slide.
This exact process has been followed with the standard embassy design for 10 years, over 10 years.
And the
exactly the same process of awarding contracts, of doing site work, and then of coming out of the ground after certification.
We've never built a building like this. You've never used a blast wall like this. It had not been certified, it had not gone through the testing. When I went to London and talked to the people on the ground, they said, we've never built anything like this. And the point the Inspector General is making, I'd like to get his comments on this, is you're taking a huge risk. That, to me, looks like construction. And you're saying that, well, it's done in the past, it's not construction. Mr. Linick, is that construction? Does that put us at risk? What if that hadn't passed its test?
Well, when you
go ahead.
When you look at a picture like that, to me, that does look like construction. But from the point of view of our report, it's really irrelevant because the Department's own published policy, the FAM, says you can't even award a contract, okay, or initiate construction prior to certification. So in my own published policies, which are the official interpretation of the statute which Congress passed, by initiating construction prior to certification, prior to testing, what you're doing is committing to a course of construction, committing to a building that may have to be redesigned if the blast testing fails or if certification doesn't work. And that's primarily our concern, is that the Department needs to take into consideration the risk to taxpayers as a result of a failure of testing. I don't know what would have happened in this case Had blast testing failed? It's not clear to me. But this has implications not just for this embassy, but really for future projects.
And that's the key to why we're here. Mr. Starr, I'll give you a chance to answer. My time's expiring, but this picture was taken weeks before you even started your testing.
Sir, those photographs are dated 2014. I certified that building in December of 2013.
If you go, keep going.
In addition, I want to make something clear that for years, we have done something called soil salinity, Munez was referring to. Your first photograph is closest to what we allow before we actually start to construct the building. We will not let OBO start constructing the foundation of the building, even the foundation, before certification. We do permit them to do soil stabilization.
Was your blast testing done before that date?
No, sir, but I'd like to talk about that as well.
That's the point.
Because there is no requirement to do blast testing. Sir, there is no requirement.
You're here to tell me, as the head of diplomatic security, you're not required to do blast testing?
No, sir.
You need a piece of legislation that tells you we're going to have to do blast testing?
No, sir, if I could explain.
Yes, but don't come before us and tell us that you had certified that building. That's not what the Inspector General had found.
No,
you had not done the blast testing when that, look how far developed that was. They didn't whip that up in 2 weeks.
Sir, if I may explain. For most of 2013, my staff went back and forth with OBO and did not certify the building based on the original designs that we got. We did have questions about the design of that building. OBO and the architects and the blast consultants went back many times from the original designs and looked at it and closely evaluated how to build that building to meet our standards, In late November of 2013, late November and in early December, I sat down with my entire staff. I sat down with OBO, we sat down with the architect of record, and we sat down with the Weidlinger Company, which was the architect of record's blast consultant, one of the absolute most experienced, best blast consultants in the world, bar none. The question that I needed answered to me before I would certify that building was, will that building, as it is currently designed, meet our standards, our forced entry standards, our blast standards? Weidlinger, the architect of design, and my own people said, yes, it will.
When was that?
In late November and early December 2013.
Then why did you do any blast testing?
Sir, we learn things from blast tests. I also am a little bit from the, I don't know, from the Missouri school. I want to be shown that things actually do it. But when I have the architect of record and perhaps the best blast engineering company in the world, Weidlinger, telling me that this building will protect our people, absolutely will protect our people, that is a promise that they're saying and putting in writing. And therefore, I can sit there and I can write a certification to you, a promise that the facility resulting from the project is going to protect our people adequately. Now, we wanted to blast test it anyway. We scheduled those blast tests shortly after that. We learned things from blast testing. In the layups of the blast testing, we actually used glass that was thinner. We used glass that was the same. We used glass that was thicker. We learned things from blast testing. Full layup, it confirmed exactly what the engineers had said. It passed.
You're telling me there were no failures on these blast tests?
I am telling you that.
No, were there any failures on these blast tests?
Component tests, pieces of glass that we tested, including some that were less than what we were putting up, including some that were less, failed.
There you go.
Pieces that were less than what we were doing, sir. We do blast testing to learn a lot of things. We find out a lot from it. The full-scale mock-up of the building that we did passed every single test with flying colors.
After You had started the construction.
reaffirming what the architects and the blast engineers gave us in writing, saying absolutely,
But my
this will
time,
pass.
my apologies to my colleagues. I do not want to take so much time. I want to give you the latitude to offer those types of answers. You have a very skeptical Congress who thinks you're gambling with a lot of money and a lot of commitment here. At the same time, you have an Inspector General that finds it's not in compliance with the law, not in compliance with your own internal standards, and you're here to try to convince us, based on those 3 photos, that that's not actually construction. And that's why we're having this meeting.
No, I understand that, and I appreciate the opportunity
Let
to
me go to
explain
my
something.
ranking member, Mr. Cummings.